welcome to my channel, and for my subscribers, welcome back. Today we'll be making a summertime favorite. I'm showing my recipe for a no-bake cheesecake, and I call it a summertime favorite because you don't have to turn on that hot oven, am I right? So we're going to start by making our graham cracker crumbs. There are many ways you can go about this. I chose to buy whole graham crackers from the store, and I'm going to break them up and place them into the food processor and grind them until they become crumbs. You also have the option of buying the graham cracker crumbs off the shelf already made at the grocery store. And if you're feeling real bold, I have a homemade graham cracker recipe on my page. You can make them entirely from scratch and use those for your graham cracker crust as well on the cheesecake. And if you don't own a food processor, you have options for crushing the graham crackers as well. You can certainly place the graham crackers into a storage bag and use a rolling pin to crush them. Or if you own a wooden mallet or meat tenderizer, you can crush them in the storage bag that way as well. So I'm breaking up the last of the graham crackers and I'm grinding them up in the food processor now. I broke them up into two separate batches because it's a small food processor. And that's how your crumbs should look. They should look very fine before you add them to the mixing bowl, which we're going to do now. And then once we finish adding those crumbs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1/4 cup of white granulated sugar. And then I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Trust me when I say it is a complex flavor, but it is well worth it even though it is different. So please give it a try. I'm going to stir everything until it's combined. And I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter to the crumbs. This is what will help the crumbs to adhere, congeal in the Springform Pan, which I'll show you momentarily. You're going to want to mix the butter in with the crumbs until it has a sand-like texture as you see on the screen. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move the bowl out of the way and bring over our 9-inch Springform Pan. You can either use parchment paper to place on the bottom, or you can lightly grease the pan with oil or butter to keep the crumbs from sticking. And we're going to add the crumbs. We're going to start by adding between 1/3 and 1/2 of the crumbs to the pan, and we're going to form the edges of the crust. And you only want the edges to be just tall enough to align with the top of the cheesecake filling, which you'll see in a little bit. And if you notice, I'm using a glass, the bottom of a glass, to pat down the crust and shape it in the Springform Pan. You can also use a cooking spoon to do this, and you can use your hands as well. And then we're going to continue to gradually add the remaining crumbs to form the bottom of the crust as shown. And we're going to make sure it's well packed down before we place it in the refrigerator. And then we're going to chill it for 1 to 2 hours. And then while the crust is chilling, we're going to add 2 8-ounce blocks of room temperature cream cheese to a 5-quart mixing bowl. I recommend using Philadelphia cream cheese. Now for my Texas folks, if you know, you know, HEB brand cream cheese is just as good, if not better, than Philadelphia cream cheese. So keep that in mind for my Texas folks. And then next I'm going to add 1/3 cup of plain Greek yogurt. And once I add the Greek yogurt, I'm going to add 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. I recommend Eagle brand. Again, another HEB plug. The HEB brand sweetened condensed milk is excellent as well. If you're in Texas, so that is another option if you can't find the Eagle brand. And we're going to add 1/8 teaspoon of iodized salt. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1/4 teaspoon of lemon extract. Now using the hand mixer, what I'm going to do is mix everything together on medium-high speed for 1 to 2 minutes. And we're going to mix everything until all the lumps are gone. So I've been mixing it now for about 1 minute, and you notice there's a bit of gunk on the side of the bowl. I'm going to scrape that down with a plastic spatula, and then once I scrape it back into the cheesecake filling, I'm going to mix the filling again for an additional 30 seconds to get rid of any lumps that was in the gunk. Okay, so we're going to turn the mixer back on. All right, so it's been another 30 seconds. And the cheesecake filling, it looks good and smooth. So we're going to scrape a little bit off of the mixer. And then next we're going to move on to making our gelatin for the cheesecake. The gelatin is what will help the cheesecake to firm up once you put it in the refrigerator. This is why it is called no-bake, because normally you would need eggs to help a cheesecake firm up. In this case, you don't. So we're going to start by adding 1/4 cup of water, and then we're going to slowly empty 1 pack of gelatin into the bowl as shown. And you want to be careful to add it to the bowl carefully, just as I'm showing you on the screen. Because if you add it too quickly, it will lump up in the water. So that's how it should look once you add it, and then you're going to allow it to rest for 1 minute. And then after it rests for 1 minute, you're going to heat the gelatin in the microwave on high in 10-second intervals up to 40 seconds. And after each 10-second interval, you're going to give the gelatin a stir to get rid of any lumps that you see as shown. So this is what you're going to do. And I'm going to repeat this step a few times up to 40 seconds. Now, circling back around to my ingredients, you may ask why I use plain Greek yogurt versus sour cream. Plain Greek yogurt, it tends to offer a bit more of a tangy taste than sour cream, and then also it makes for a slightly less dense cheesecake. As far as why I use lemon extract, it gives the cheesecake a lemon flavor, but not a flavor that's too intense compared to lemon juice because it's not nearly as acidic. So I just added the gelatin to the cheesecake filling, and I'm folding it together until it's well combined. And that's how your cheesecake filling should look once everything's well combined. Normally you wouldn't want runny cheesecake filling for no-bake cheesecake, but in this case the gelatin will help it to firm up once you put it in the refrigerator. So now I'm going to bring back the Springform Pan. I just removed it from the refrigerator. And we're going to add the filling to the pan right now. So we're going to bring over our bowl. Okay, and we're adding the filling. Get all of it in there. We're going to set the bowl aside, and I'm going to use the spatula to make it as pretty as possible on the top. It won't be perfect. That's the nature of no-bake cheesecakes, but try to make it as smooth as possible, that top layer as you see on the screen. All right, so we're going to place it in the refrigerator for a minimum of 3 hours. For the best result, I would recommend allowing it to chill overnight. So I've let this chill for 6 hours in the video, and I'm carefully removing the Springform Pan. This is to ensure the graham cracker crust doesn't fall apart or pull apart from the cheesecake filling when you remove it, which it didn't, which is great. So now I'm going to cut into it, and I'm going to show you exactly how nice and firm the cheesecake slice looks once I finish cutting it and pull it out. By the way, you might have noticed I pulled that knife out of a glass with hot water and wiped it. It's much easier to cut into these cheesecakes with a warm, clean knife. That's just a bit of a pro tip. So we're going to try to ease that on out of there. That first slice is always the hardest. Cut it a bit more. And there we go. And look at there. Yeah, it looks almost as good as cheesecake you bake in the oven. So I'm going to add it to the plate. And you can top it with whipped cream or fruit filling. I'm not a fruit filling type of person. Now I did add fruit filling just for presentation for this video. It was strawberry filling, and it is store-bought, by the way. But you can certainly make filling from scratch if you choose. And I hope you like this video. If you would like to see more of this content, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.